that product, we mark that product up. So that's another revenue stream for us. Lastly, we take on the role of construction management for such components. We are not at risk. Meaning we are not general contractors doing a typical CM at risk contract. We do agency construction management in order to, this is really more accurate, right? I mean, this we don't do. It's an old slide, sorry. This is what we really do. We're a third-party construction management firm doing what's called agency construction management, or CMA. So we are not at risk. We are not taking liability. We are not paying subcontractors. The general contractor still does that. But we can come in and work for the client to ensure that the digitally fabricated components that we supply to the project are properly integrated and that there's value to the client for that kind of work. This is an example, wind farm lookout we did for a big wind energy company. We did several of these around the country. This is the exact size and shape of a Vestas 80-meter wind tower laid flat on the ground. It's made of components. We outfitted in the interior a 40-foot container to take all of these components, go to a job site, build this in 4 days, come back, get refilled, and do it again. There's the finished product. These are PRPs. It's an educational lookout, essentially, for for kids, students, the general public, to get a sense of what these things are by walking it. That's really the only way you can understand the scale of these things. They are huge. This is a public art project in Houston called Radiant Fountains. We worked with the artist Dennis Oppenheim from New York, who sadly passed away just before this project was completed. This was his masterwork and his final project. We saved the project about $500,000 by coming up with this big wedding cake lift, whereby we were able to construct these 3 towers in 6 halves simultaneously using little equipment like that green lift down there, and then bringing in the big equipment, the 300-ton crane, which you see there on the right, 3 times to do 1 lift. So everything is completely built, wired, and fabricated for that in 6 halves, and then buttoned up. You see a little rectangular bolt ring there in the middle. So we designed the system for the tolerance of these huge things. They're 55 feet tall, about 50-foot diameter at the top. They overhang JFK Boulevard, which is the major and only thoroughfare to Intercontinental Airport at Houston. It cannot be shut down. So there's a big pucker factor on a project like this. So you have to, I still have no idea how we got this permitted, but we did. But that was a big part of selling this in and getting it done on budget, is coming up with this assembly logic that allowed us to do this one quick pick without shutting down the roadways. And it has a animated LED sequence. Quite beautiful. There's a movie of this on the website. Fair look at it. These are letterform sculptures from by Jaume Plensa, a Spanish artist practicing in Barcelona. These were actually built in a studio ship, although we couldn't manufacture these things here. What we really did on this project was this nifty foundation system, which you can barely see here, that allowed us, see there's this huge live oak tree, so these 20,000-pound boulders were not able to be craned. So it's this kind of puzzling exercise. How do we place these rocks, level them, and orient them the way the artist wants without a crane? And the answer was this foundation system that ultimately got buried, but it allowed us to place the pieces, turn them, and level them after they were placed. Another piece from the same artist, at a private residence in Seattle. And again, a kind of unique foundation system that was digitally fabricated and is now invisible. It's all about these pieces, not about what holds them up. But in these, what was very important in a piece like this that has no reference, right? There's no level or plumb surface on these things, but they have to look at each other. If if they don't look at each other, you know, it's like having a conversation with somebody like this, right? So these pieces had to look at each other, so the only way for us to do that was to design this system that would allow them to kind of float and level on site, and then kind of tack into position. That's a minor thing, but an important one. This is for Jim Iserman, a California artist, who does a lot of work with repetitive modular forms. These are 5-sided figures that are actually shaped at this courtyard at Ohio State University, that are formed in rotationally molded high-density polyethylene, and they become benches, interlocking benches. That's a rotomolder, in case you've never seen one. It's basically 3 rotational axes that kind of tumble the form to Cook's high-density polyethylene shot under the inside of the form. So it's a slower hit rate than blow molding or vacuum forming, very durable end product with a consistent wall thickness. That's my partner Andrew with the initial form, and that's the first prototype off the line. So you see the hooks here, right? Here's this hook is the same. When you flip it over, those hooks join each other, right? These things link together with the same hook. So there's many iterations that these things could take. And the artist came to the site and arranged these things. Met me in the 18-wheeler there, and we had the project done in a day, which is quite satisfying. The seats are concave. We don't want to collect water, so we have what's called a kiss-off connection. This big slot that goes through and connects to the back of the other seat. So that provides structural support, but also drainage. And then the cup holders, same deal. There's a stainless steel shaft, a hollow shaft that connects the cup holders, which are also the feet. So everything has kind of dual functions. That's the end result. This is a pipework piece, completely digitally modeled, no digital fabrication whatsoever. It's all pipes and flanges, so this was just something that had to be very accurately modeled and fabricated from our drawings. Actually, I'll take that back. There's this kind of interface here is all water jet cut stainless steel. And basically what happens there is, there's a pump here. We designed the entire plumbing system underneath it. You're pumping, evacuating water from the vessel, lowering the float valve, and the city water pressure to this, which is 25 feet above your head, directly centered above this. So you get this fantastic shower from 25 feet overhead. It's a unique experience. If you've never had a shower from 25 feet up, I recommend it. It feels different than a regular shower. This is another shower piece for Chris Doyle, a New York artist. This is in Austin. It's 4 regular showers, and this is an image that the artist created, cut in stainless steel corrugated material. So our big challenge here was to lay this image out over 40-some corrugated panels, and then work with a water jet fabricator to develop a method to cut a corrugated, material, right? As you can imagine, a laser can't do that because a laser focuses its beam, and a laser won't cut corrugated. Water jet will, so that was the only way to do this. I'm sorry?
Did Crow do that?
No, this was Campo.
Campo.
Yeah. So we had to pull the image apart, carefully look at the period of the corrugation, overlap the image, and then cut all of these panels, and then we assemble them. More importantly is the stuff you don't see, right? The primary and tertiary structure that becomes invisible when you look up at this. So the very odd tertiary structure here, these stainless steel tubes, are laid out to support all of the kind of peninsulas in this corrugated image. And at high noon, the image is rendered perfectly clear. At other times, the sun is catching corrugations and the image begins to distort. So only at midday is the image clearly projected in the ground. This is a very intensely parametrically modeled and digitally fabricated piece called the Grotto for Meditation. It's a kind of contemporary reimagination of a Frederick Kiesler project. Originally by Jane Blafford Owen, and this likewise was commissioned by Jane Blafford Owen a year before her death at age 97. So we had this great process of working with the original patron of Frederick Kiesler, who is arguably prescient in his notions of component-based architecture and digital fabrication, although in the early 60s there were not the words to describe that. Here you see on the left our prototype and one of our students who literally learned it to TIG weld and TIG welded that entire piece in one day. That piece on the left, he welded that together in one day. Again, because all of those little components, the C9, right? They told themselves where to go. And he had 3 people around him helping him, feeding him parts, right? So it was a really beautiful, efficient process. And there on the right, you see the little prototype, quarter-scale prototype, sitting on, the full-scale version. And there's Jane Blafford Owen in the red hat, our chancellor, Ben Nicholson, who is our teaching colleague, Beatrice Colomina, a history and theory expert on Kiesler, and our new dean, Patricia Oliver. This is contributed for Lyle Lovett a few years ago. This part here, completely not digitally fabricated. Everything else above those columns, completely digitally fabricated. And it's great to have a client who trusts you when you say, I think I can do this in a completely new way. It'll be very efficient and very accurate and very high quality. And Mr. Lovett is a stickler for quality. He's really passionate about the process and the care in one's craft. So this is just an Oculus, all CNC laser cut, galvanized, that receives these trusses. Also laser cut and fabricated the ledgers at the low end of the trusses, the king posts at mid-span, and there's the entire piece. 62-foot clear span and 18-inch wood trusses. So that's the kind of thing that if you go to an engineer with that criteria, they'll laugh you out of the room. So we just didn't go to an engineer. And with Hurricane Ike, when the center of Hurricane Ike passed directly over this structure, I was up at night wondering, and went out there a couple of weeks later and talked to Lyle's guys who, after the hurricane passed over, went up on the roof, came back down and reported to me, feels like the earth. I don't like showing renderings. Well, okay, it's a screen that's viewable from the inside and outside things. We'll leave it at that. This is a now complete project. The card is floating around here somewhere. This is at Texas A&M called Memory Cloud. 8,000 LED nodes that animate 3-dimensional shadow images within this kind of diagrid lattice. For this, very early in the process, we employed Grasshopper and another plugin that I'm not remembering, a spreadsheet export plugin, to rapidly iterate the density of LEDs, which have a cost to them, and this has a budget. Right? So we looked at density, form, and cost simultaneously using Grasshopper. So in real time with our artist clients with us, we were able to, on screen in our office, play with the density of the LED nodes and look at the real-time cost. So this is a project that came in on time, on budget, despite the complexity. And this one also has a movie on our website if you care to look at it. These are renderings. On the other side of all this, I'll talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. I'm going to try to blaze through this stuff a little quicker. We often refer to our own office with this 80 spinning plates. Here's our plates. Metal Lab is our multidisciplinary design firm. TexFab, you are all well aware of. My Metal Lab partner, Andrew Drana, is Brad's partner in TexFab. TextFab. My counterpoint to TextFab, UHGBC, is a nonprofit focused on design, development, and commercialization of component-based sustainable building technologies. Space is a company that we have spun off, which I'll show you the product of. Smile Booth is another product startup company that is our neighbor and longtime client. We do all of their product design work. And PV Pod and Grow Pod are both products that Metal Lab owns wholly, and we are slowly trying to push into the market. Discus is no longer called Discus, it's now called Ringo, but that's something we developed with Philips, the electronics company. It's an LED light fixture, and that we no longer own. We've assigned the intellectual property to them in exchange for royalties. So here's the photo booth. Again, this is a parametrically developed skin that allows us to kind of create complex forms by hand. The perforation is a signature element of the product, but it's also a way for us to manually create these soft, complex curves without the use of any specialized equipment. So by removing that material, it allows us to hand form the material around the ribs. There are 50 Smile Booths all over the country. We have a wonderful piece of PR material from our clients at Smile Booth that has all these A-list celebrities mugging in front of our thing, which is, it's just great to think that this, that these kind of tools, digital fabrication, can be leveraged not just to scale up, but to scale out, right? And this thing isn't big. We jokingly refer to it as our little skyscraper project, and imagine, a kind of building facade system that could be based on this technique. But this is scaled out. They're all over the country. And so that's a different way for you to think about kind of, scaling your work, which is to repeat it.
I did think about that project when we were watching some of Denari's facade developments for some of these competition projects in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
One of those larger master planning or urban scale projects.
Right.
Reminded me of some of the ways in which you prep the metal.
Yeah.
Some of the small stuff.
Yeah, we did a submission to Architect R&D Awards a few months ago based on this system. I'll send it to Brad and share it with you guys. But we were quite interested in the ability for this system to scale up.
Yeah.
I mean, to a point, right? King Kong's not going to come and form these things for us, right? But we do think this system could scale up in some really interesting ways as a kind of leave-in-place formwork.
Well, you're going to hear a group a little bit later that's talking about that, and can you then conversely, on one level, that's talking about flexibility, and can you then think about that in the inverse in terms of rigidity?
Yes.
Right, so that then gets into a pretty interesting dialogue.
Yeah, if you combine this perforation technique with the kind of formal language of Nervi, Luigi Nervi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
It's rich. This is the project formerly known as Discus. When we start product design, we begin by doing market research. So we start with Google image search. Solar-powered LED lighting. There's a problem with this picture. Everything's the same and they're all nasty. With the exception of, maybe a couple of them, but, nasty, 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 nasty. I mean, okay, that's all right. But just, in general, you're pairing what wants to be a very elegant light with a big Dumbo ear solar panel, right? And here's the real problem. You put one of these things next to a tree, and this tree is going to grow up over these solar panels and render that light obsolete, right? So solar panels and trees, it's a really poetic battle, one that I'm following closely. We developed something we called the cluster concept, which we thought was a no-brainer, and as it turns out, no one else is doing this. So our cluster concept says you put a solar generator here and create a shade structure out of it, and then you do a string of lights here, They're all connected by low voltage wiring, which is cheaper to run. And we called it Discus. Discus was trademarked internationally. Now we call it Ringo. And I actually like Ringo better. But Ringo is a very simple circular form mounted to a rectangular body that has a very elegant sweep back into a circular form. Looks simple, but it's actually a casting challenge. And here's the casting development. It's actually a 4-part casting. Here's the parting line here from the upper and lower armature. And then this piece is actually 2 castings. The lower casting, which is very complex with all these heat sinks, and the upper casting is just this thin piece up top, which we really had to push for. They wanted to just put a piece of sheet metal on top of this thing. And we said, no. This edge detail here is very, very important. Must match, right? So that was something that, frankly, added a couple $100 to the cost of these units. It was very important. The Ringo refers to the ring, the color ring, which is also something that we didn't see out there in the lighting world. All the lights out there seem to be black or bronze or gray. We wanted to do a light with color. And we can also do this ring as a backlit translucent piece. The LED light bulb, really we're responding to the LED light bulb, which is a flat circuit board. Every LED light that we saw out there was a kind of retrofit. Right, the light still looked like an old light. It was set up for a metal halide or sodium vapor bulb, which is a big ostrich egg looking thing, you know. So we said, we don't need that volume anymore. We need to design a light fixture that is a thin disc shape. Right, so we said, how thin can that be? And we worked with Philips engineers, you know, who said, okay, well, this is the minimum that we need for a heat sink for this LED board to achieve its maximum lifespan and efficiency. And we said, okay, we're going to go about a 1/4 inch beyond that, and that's the form, right? So that's as thin as you can make an LED fixture. It's surprisingly big. It's actually about 18 inches in diameter. When you have it on a desk, it's this huge thing. When you put it up in the air, it's very elegant. There's the prototype. Longer list of little issues on the prototypes, you know. This line, we moved this line up an 1/8 of an inch. We grounded those corners. We tightened these locations. We added, you know, various features to the underside so that it looks elegant when it's during the day when you look up. This is the first prototype run at Philips. These are all some of our comments prototypes, and chief of which was putting a white bezel behind the white circuit board so that when you look up you can see a rectangle. You know, it's kind of a bit of a buzzkill there. And the quality of light is just fantastic. That was our prototype solar generator. These were our subsequent iterations where we thickened the pole and created a ring housing to protect the bolts from being vandalized. And we did several sizes of generators, 4-panel, 2-panel, and 1-panel. Solar container. I'd encourage you on this one to check out our website. It's adaptivecontainer.com. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail on this one other than to say it's digitally fabricated, and that's very important. This is our manufacturing facility. This product we spun a company off, which is actually in the process of being acquired right now with an outside investor. So we are looking forward with this product to having the facilities and balance sheet to go after some very large orders. Working with a Fortune 50 client right now who's talking anyway about doing 1,000 units in 2050 and 100 units next year. So the ability to scale is very important. And again, not unlike the photo booth, the techniques and technologies that you're learning here facilitate that scale, right? Whether it's size or reach, quantity, I should say. That's okay, right? 4th of July, that's the mayor. Some of the people, when they leave the factory, they go out into the lot prior to shipment to get charged up. So rack deploys by 2 people in less than an hour, which is an important thing for disaster relief and military applications, things like that. That's outside. Let's, certainly, any questions, but I would like to leave, ample time here for all of you. I understand there's 5 groups. I'd like to, Brad and I talked about this a little bit on the way down. If it's okay with all of you, I'd like to hear about everybody's work in kind of rapid fire, right? What we, something we forget about a lot of times, especially as you leverage your work into a kind of entrepreneurial context, is the ability to clearly and succinctly sell what you do, right? So digital fabrication does a lot on the back end in terms of helping us to manufacture, to scale up, to achieve kind of high levels of quality. But on the front end, it allows us to visualize, and it allows me to go out and sell this work. That's my job now. I no longer sit in front of a computer. I'm sorry to say, my job is answering emails and driving around and talking to people. And I love doing it. And it's some of you that will become your lot in life and your mission to sell design, right? And these tools work for that too. It's very important. So I'd like to hear about your work selling, right? Give me the elevator pitch. Anybody heard that term? It's a B-school term, right? It means you're riding the elevator up with someone from the C-suite, right? A CEO or an investor, and you've got that elevator ride, and that's it. And you gotta sell it in like 30 seconds to a minute. So you guys can take a little longer than that.
So we did say that, look, you've got, with each of you, I've talked about the fact that you've got a couple of clear buckets, right, that you put your research in. You put it in the, why does it matter? Why is it important? Why does it matter? What are you tethering it to in terms of precedent or case study type support? What are the kind of technical data points that you're using to support the research itself? Is that procedural or material science, some aspect of what you're kind of studying? And then is there something about the kind of way that, or method or process by which you're going to begin to examine this research that you need to kind of put on the table that would be significant to what it is that you're going to be looking at? So that's 4 things, right? If you spend a couple of 30 seconds or so touching on each one of those, you should be able to put together a fairly succinct description. Okay? So in what Joe just described is no different than what I said to you guys a week ago about your ability to make presentations in a very clear fashion and the importance of that. And so this is an opportunity to follow through.
It's really important, guys. Digital fabrication, you all know what that means. Not a lot of people do. You say digital fabrication, I watch people glaze over, right? People in construction, people in architecture, right? You can't ever take your lexicon for granted, right? It's really important to understand that you guys are becoming experts in your trade. But it's very important to be able to communicate that. It's incredible value, right? Because we just talked about how valuable and how potent this tool is. It's really incumbent on all of you to learn how to leverage this tool, how to get it out there, how to sell it, right? How to make it happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's your job. It's all of your job to become experts in this trade and then find a way to put it into practice.
So let's do this. Let's get your group on and let you throw it up on the wall, and then we're going to file through everybody else.